Now, several countries have agreed to jointly carry out patrols in the southern Red Sea and Gulf of Aden to try to safeguard commercial shipping against Houthi attacks.
Well, the Yemen rebels say they are supporting Palestinians under siege by Israel in the Gaza Strip. A statement on Tuesday by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin identified several countries taking part in an international force. The security coalition includes the United States, of course, and along with the US, there is the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles and Spain. Now, it is unclear if they are willing to do what US warships have done of late, shoot down the Houthi missiles and drones and rush to the aid of commercial ships under attack.
The Iran-aligned Houthis have attacked vessels in Red Sea shipping lanes and fired drones and missiles at Israel since the start of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. It has heightened fears of a wider conflict in West Asia. Houthi rebels who rule much of Yemen say their attacks are a show of solidarity with Palestinians. They've pledged to continue until Israel stops attacking the Gaza Strip, more than 1,600 kilometers from Sana'a.
The Houthi attacks launched from Yemen target the flow of supplies between Asia and the West and pose a significant threat to the global economy. The attacks have driven up the cost of shipping goods through the Red Sea. About 23,000 ships each year pass through the narrow Bab al-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Gulf of Aden with the Red Sea and beyond to the Suez Canal.
For more on this, we're now being joined by Dov Zakhem, who is former Under-Secretary of Defense in George W. Bush administration and currently Senior Advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you for having me.
Now, sir, Operation Prosperity Guardian, the 10-nation coalition to counter Houthis. Do you reckon that this is now a full-scale maritime conflict in the region? And what can you tell us about the efficacy of this coalition?
Well, the Houthis would like it to be a full-scale maritime war, simply because that way they are closely tied to the war in Gaza, and they're clearly trying to expand the war. Whether it's the Houthis themselves or the Iranians behind them is an open question. My guess is this is all coming from Tehran. Tehran works through various proxies, including the Houthis. The Houthis have said, as you've reported, that any ship that has some kind of connection with Israel is going to be a target. Now, this coalition is part of what's called Task Force 153, which has been operating in the region for some time. But now, of course, they're finding that British Petroleum and Maersk, the great shipping line, are essentially not going into the Red Sea. And I think it's for that reason that this coalition has been put together. A couple of things to note. First is Bahrain is the only Gulf country that actually has joined this coalition, and it's been part of the task force for some time. There is no consensus between some of the others in the Gulf. The Saudis would rather not have attacks on the Houthis because they're trying to, they've had some peace and quiet for a year and they want to maintain it that way. The Emirates, on the other hand, are much more forceful. It also begs the question of what exactly this coalition is going to do. Is it simply going to try to knock down missiles that are fired at ships, or will it retaliate against the Houthi launchers? There are a lot of people in Washington, in particular, I think, who would like to see the latter approach, take out the launchers and teach the Houthis a lesson. And in fact, one might go even further, something I suggested in an article in The Hill last week, which is make it clear to the Iranians that they're going to be a target if this keeps up.
Mr. Zakhem, I just want to come in there. You know, of course, these are the actions that one would assume the US would take or this coalition would take, knock out at their sources of ammunition, knock out at their bases from where they are carrying out these attacks. But I just want to take this up with you. Now, in spite of the repeated attacks by the Houthis, the US has not struck back to date or targeted any of the militants' weapons or other sites. Now, yesterday, even just recently, the US Defense Secretary, he was asked the same question, but there was no clear answer. I just wanted to take your opinion on this. Why has the US not retaliated yet? How often do we see attacks on US ships or ones that US ships are intercepting, and yet no solid attack counter?
Well, I think the reason is the Saudis have been pleading with us not to do that. We have the capability to shoot down drones, to shoot down missiles, and essentially to take a defensive posture. As I've said, I personally and many people in Washington feel that that's insufficient, but you do have this split opinion, if you will, between the two most powerful countries with the most powerful militaries in the Gulf, the Saudis and the Emiratis. The Saudis would rather us not attack the Houthis directly. The Emiratis seem to be more forceful and forward-leaning in that regard. And then, of course, behind it all is Iran. And again, the Gulf states, with the strong exception of Bahrain, are very ambivalent about taking on Iran. Remember, the Saudis only recently essentially restored decent, if not better than decent, relations with Iran. I don't think they want to jeopardize those if they can avoid it.
All right, Mr. Dov Zakhem, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure to get your insights on matters, and we are going to be tracking this closely. Would like to have a word with you on this soon.
Thank you very much indeed.